Hi, my name's Andrew Knapp. I live on Beebe Drive in one of Dan Beebe's houses. We moved down here during the height of COVID. Took us 2 years to finally find a house, which Dan built for us. When we first looked at the property, it was a gorgeous, quiet area that after 30 years on my police department and 6 years in the Navy, I want a little peace and quiet. So when the dogs started, after the house was built and we moved in, it was like, time out, this is not right. And it's not what we had bought into, and we don't expect that it should go on. And I'll leave that up to the legal people, but it's just aggravating, and I know all the neighbors feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
I apologize. Is public comments or are you correct?
No, this is public comments.
I apologize for being late. I had an issue with the dog. I had to get to the vet. My name is Brad Mogan. I'm a city resident and owner, a county resident and owner of a business in the city and county. I have a couple things to pass out, if that's okay. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'll try to be as brief as possible. The items that I'm passing out are just a few things for the group to be able to visualize, and a couple of things to potentially look at later, as well as my information. I am here to speak on behalf of cannabis dispensaries in the county, and specifically the items that I'm here to kind of talk about are related to both the zoning and some concerns that I have regarding the way that the legislation has been written. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was ultimately aware of these things. There's a bill that came out that was House Bill 556, which is about 88 pages of some pretty dry legislation, and I'm sure that the majority of the people in the county here have not pored over this the way that I have. I've hired lobbyists and lawyers, and I have spent a lot of my own personal time and money early on over the past 2 years, kind of working towards the goal of being involved in this, and I'm speaking on my behalf and my interest, but I am also speaking on behalf of the interests of the county. And one of the important factors that I wanted to bring to your attention is that the way that the current application process is for the dispensaries is there are a certain amount of dispensaries that are broken up into each of the counties. And we have 2 new approved additional licenses that would be allowed to come into this county. The growing licenses and the processing licenses will be broken down into kind of 4 quadrants of Maryland and separated into regions. So we could potentially have, specifically with the dispensaries, 2 additional licenses. They do not put any restrictions on who can put those licenses or those businesses into our county. And my concern is that this is a big business. We as Wicomico County are the holders of the second highest grossing dispensary in the state of Maryland. And so that makes us an attractive place for people who are from maybe across the bridge to come over and to try and place a dispensary here, own a dispensary, whatever they want. But the liquor licenses in this county allow for people to have an address, to be a resident of the county, and I think it's something that we should look at to trying to keep that money so it does not leak out of our economy. The current dispensary that we have is owned by a multi-state group, that does employ people and does provide money into the community here, but it's also taking a good majority of that outside of where we are. It's my opinion that we need, not just a progressive kind of shot in the arm, but, more businesses like this that will leave a positive multiplier leak and effectively be a part of the community. People that are out-of-town residences, out-of-town business owners, out-of-town landlords do not make for as involved or maybe invested into the community here, as they do not show up to the grocery stores, they do not show up to the same parks that we go to or the restaurants that we go to. They don't have any accountability in that way. So I asked us to look at that as something to consider. The zoning being recommended potentially to the county zoning as industrial was not the way this was pitched to me, as I have been having conversations since early January with the with people from the county zoning, and as everyone was hesitant to tell me any information, we did have a direction of going at least commercial for the dispensaries. Growing licenses are industrial processes. So are the processing licenses. These are big, large spaces that no one would put into a expensive downtown location or anywhere near the city if possible. But a dispensary is a retail business, and so I just ask that we look at it from an example. And I apologize to Councilman Holloway. He's already heard me say this in the planning and zoning ahead of time, but a can of Coca-Cola, we buy at a restaurant, we buy at a grocery store, we buy it at a convenience store. We don't go to the Coke plant and buy a Coke bottle, right? So in the same way, the product has to have a home that is easily accessible for it to be following the spirit of this new round of licensing, which is to say that we as a county do not unduly burden the sale of cannabis in the community. I know there are a lot of different communities around us that are hesitant to make these moves and to do these things. But one of the pieces that I'm going to drop off for you all to look at, and I could be happy to showcase these in a different way. I could send these digitally. I'm providing my email for anybody that wants any follow-up. I know there's a lot of things that I could possibly be a resource to you all if anyone has any questions about this, as I've spent a lot of time preparing these. So I have that, and I have these links here would be easier to look at, I think, via, in a digital sense, because it has, multiple links within these that are just talking about citations of the points that I'm making. Someone in the city had recently sort of proposed the idea of these dispensaries in a way that I found to be, sort of incorrect. The way that they are set up right now, they were talking about these as if they were a difference between maybe a pornographic store or a liquor distillery, somewhere kind of on either sides of the spectrum. And I think that it's wrong to look at it either way. I think this is a whole lot more like a Whole Foods. And when you see the stats in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Colorado, and California, what it's done to the property value around these places, it has the same level of boost that an Apple store does, the same level of boost that a Whole Foods has. So it's actually, if nothing else, a neutral or positive impact in the communities. I also am including, just for the council's eyes to kind of get a visual concept of what my plan would look like, whether I'm a person that gets a license or not. I think these things end up looking a lot more like an Apple store than a liquor store even. These are president or the acting director of the MCA. If you want these.
You're welcome to give it to me.
I beg to differ. You are important.
Yeah.
I don't think I get to vote, so.
Would it be possible to,
Hey, Brad, you need a hand?
Give him to one, we'll just
Yeah,
send him down.
just sign it for him down, yep.
Him down.
yeah, thank you. My hands are too dry.
All right.
And it's just a little information. If anybody has any questions, you'd like to meet or I can offer any assistance so you don't have to come.
Oh, you at the old Wicomico Hotel.
That's all I got.
With Wicomico Hotel.
Miss Hurley.
Yeah, exactly right. Logan's Oyster House.
I've never been there. Uh-huh.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. I appreciate everybody bearing with me and allowing me to talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mogan. Any other public comments?
Any more?
I think we just send them all down to Miss Hurley, and then she can make the copies that we need, because,
Wait a minute.
again,
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, graph paper.
need back?
Oh, here it is. No, here.
Oh,
Right in front of my face.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other public comments? Shani, we're just going to send it all down to
Yeah, I'm
Laura.
just, it's the same, I guess.
Okay. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments?
May I be first?
You certainly may.
Sure.
I just want to say, I'm glad to be here on top of the earth, but I also see where it's very important, and I've stressed this for years, that before you do anything in a neighborhood, you have to have community input. If the community is not for it, it should not be done. And we would avoid all these problems. We would avoid all these legal stuff. You have to respect the taxpayer. I know where she is because I go down Collin Mill Road all the time. It's a beautiful community. And when you don't have community blessings, it's not a blessed project. When you have 60 dogs doing a concert, disturbing the peace, we as the county, whoever's supposed to be the planning and zoning or the sheriff's department, should work to find out, is that necessary that woman has 60 dogs? One dog gets on my nerves. Now you have 60. So I think we need, in all honesty, the department that handles these kind of situations, Humane Society, they need to go in there and make sure the dogs are properly cared for. The planning and zoning should make sure that she's operating, how many dogs she's supposed to have. And I think if it's not a law about it, I think we need to look at the noise ordinance, because we get dog complaints all the time. And neighbors are not neighbors anymore. They don't care about the other person. Now, before this whatever this thing's called, dirt bike stuff, I'm not into all that. I know my great-granddaughter, when a motorcycle goes by, she jumps. Now, can you imagine what children and young children, even your pets, when they hear all this noise, it'll make them nervous. So this neighborhood should have been contacted before anything was signed, before this was allowed to happen. Because people are going to break the laws if it's not monitored. And are you going to monitor 24/7? No, you're not going to monitor 24/7. And people are going to break the law. They're not going to honor, they don't respect the neighbors. They want to ride those whatever you call it, ATVs, whatever the things are. Somebody could get hurt. I hear they flip over and kill people, you know. I think that is not right. And if it was me, I wouldn't allow it. I would vote against it. I would vote and I don't know if if you can do it because it's been signed. I don't, because it's never been brought to our attention. So I'm sorry about that. And I know I wouldn't have voted for it if it was. On a positive note, when I ran for office again, I was talking about the ghost playgrounds and the young person, the gentleman that was here earlier talking about playgrounds, and we're going to have a night out at the Chippewa Indian Village playground, and it's going to bring attention, hopefully, to that playground. And I'm happy to see that law enforcement, the state's attorney, the minister, alliances are getting together to do an activity, the local NAACP chapter, to do an activity that night out there. So continue to fight. That's all I can tell you. Continue to fight for what's right. And that's all I have to say.
Councilman Shields? Councilman Hawley? Oh, yes. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I had an opportunity Sunday to attend the Pittsville Fire Department. They had their annual car show, had a great turnout, and it was in honor of Alan Richardson, who was a 50-year-plus firefighter. On this, we have two issues here tonight with the barking dogs in the park. Mr. Cannon, I think it would be proper if sometime in the very near future, next meeting or the meeting after at least, we have work sessions on both these subjects. I've read the MOU. I don't know much about leases or MOUs, but Paul, did you write that MOU for that Conley Mill?
I
Looked at it. I guess there's been some controversy at the podium there about whether it's correct or not, so we could go over that with our county council attorney, and then maybe have someone come up from planning and zoning and the animal control to address the dog issue. So I think 2 work sessions would be in order in the very near future on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hawley.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be nice to have a couple work sessions on both of these, and especially, the dog situations. That seems very pressing right now. I know you live in a different state, but that's it. I mean, it matters. You're human beings as well. So, I would definitely be entertained with looking into that some more. As far as Mr. Mogan over here, I know that he's contacted me about his concerns about how the state's gonna maybe change something so that his property wouldn't be able to host a dispensary. I'm just gonna say that I don't do cannabis or anything like that, but I do understand where he's coming from, and he wants a fair shake at it. So I hear what you're saying, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. So.
Bunky, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is the executive's office working with the people out by the quarry? Are they entertaining any of their amendments?
Yeah, like Casey said, we just got it yesterday.
Okay. So the executive's office is looking at it.
And we met with them before and went over a number of the issues. And nowhere in the MOU or...
Hey, Bunky, if you're going to, we don't normally do a back and forth and question and answer on this, but go ahead. The podium would be probably the best bet here.
Sorry. Nowhere in the MOU or in Mr. Hoffman's plan is there to have motorbikes. That's nowhere. And we said that at a meeting with him. So that, I get it, it's not banned by the MOU, but that's just, he does Jeep Week. I'm not aware of him doing anything with motorcycles, so that's just not a thing. So I don't want to speak for Mr. Hoffman, obviously, but I don't believe he'll have an issue with not doing that, because that's not what he does. So
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the executive's office was working with the folks out there and trying to come to some agreement.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hey, Bunky. Jeff?
On a positive note,
On the 21st of September, Councilwoman Shields and President Cannon and myself took a tour of the new renovation Phase 1 of Mardella Middle and High School. And that made me want to go back to school. That was really cool. So, and we had some members of the school board with us as well. Great tour, fantastic facility, and while we were there walking around, the construction workers were working on Phase 2. So it's ongoing, and we're excited to see that progress. And last Friday, I had the opportunity to meet with Steve Miller, our Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, out at Pirates Wharf, which is going to have a soft opening tomorrow at 9 a.m. A long project. A lot of things got in the way of that, archaeological studies and whatnot, but here we are. And again, a fantastic facility. Shout out to Steve and the whole team out there. They've done a great job. There's plenty of walking trails, and we looked at the future boat ramp and kayak launch and the observation deck that's going to happen. But that's some good stuff happening. Excited. Very nice.
Yeah, very good.
Pictures look nice.
Yeah.
Under presidential comments, I'd also like to thank everybody who spoke. I think all of us up here know what it means to have to speak in public, right? And I don't care who you are, it's not always the greatest experience. But y'all did a very excellent job as far as keeping it very concise and stating your point and your purpose for the members of the council. We do appreciate that. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor and the others in the neighborhood, we will, as has been stated here, as Mr. Holloway has requested, we'll have a work session on this, try to get some answers. I think it's necessary to find out what's going on. We have very huge concerns in reference to this MOU. I think that's why Joe was questioning you, Mr. Wilbur, and we probably want you to attend as well to sort of shuttle through it, let us know what is or what isn't. We're not really sure what the true expenses are. We really are not sure what the obligations are to the county as a whole. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that should this event take place, that it will be an event that is amicable to the neighboring communities, because that is important. That was, as you suggested tonight, Mrs. Taylor, that was one of the key points as to why the county took this over, because there was so much trouble with the dirt bikes in that neighborhood. And for once, they were going to get a reprieve, and the county was going to take it over. You're going to have an event. It looks like it's being established for a long term, maybe quite a few events, possibly over several months. I'm curious as to how we're going to be able to continue to transfer the loads of dirt that we need at the landfill. How we're going to make that work. There's a lot of unanswered questions that I think the public would like to know more about as well. And this is that public venue for everyone. In reference to the dog issue, Mr. Beebe, I know this is the second time you've been up here, and I think it's a really great concern. Two things. One is just the fact that there's a lot of disturbance that's obviously being created among the neighbors, and I think every neighbor should be aware of that and should be respectful of that, and not be in such, based on your statements, they should be more conscientious as to how they're being a good neighbor, whether they are and whether they're not. All laws aside. On the other side of that, though, I think that we do need to make sure that we follow the strict code as to what is there. The issues in first and second offense, it might be that they feel that the first offense has to be adjudicated in order to actually classify the second offense as a second offense. Either that or there's a concern that you're going to have 10 first offenses. I don't know. I would think that somehow or other you could work your way through that as well. Maybe take all 10 offenses to court and go by 1, 2, 3, or 4 the next thing you know. But you don't know exactly what your fine is going to be if you don't know whether it's a first offense or a third offense. So that could be part of this red tape and things with the judiciary. But all that aside, I think there should be more ways to skin the cat. And I do like whether it's legal or not, I do like your recommendation that after the third time you're done. I don't think we have that in here. I do believe we just redid the noise ordinances and we made them more restrictive. So there are definite ordinances out there in reference to the dog barking. But there's also that concern about running a business in one state and, not recognizing that in the state in which you live. And part of your business is actually producing the product. There has to be a link. So we'll, as Joe also suggested, and James, we'll have a work session on that as well. And the other thing with Mr. Mogan, cannabis is very frustrating, and we acknowledge that. We've had Mr. Illuminati in here on several occasions informing the county of just what absolutely we cannot do based on state law. And that's even a high priority with MACO, where Maryland Association of Counties wants to address this and try to see how we can bring back local autonomy to the local jurisdictions. So as it is right now, I believe that we have very limited. The only thing we can do is shorten the distance between dispensaries from schools and churches. We can't expand it. We're not allowed to make it further away from that church, but they don't care if we put it next door, being a little bit facetious, but it is true. That was about the only stipulation they gave us. So we'll address it. We'll do it here probably, if not the first meeting in October, the second, which would be a night meeting. The second, Mrs. Hurley says the second. So outside of that, entertain a motion to, yes.
It's
No,
the
sorry,
second
I meant
meeting in
November.
October.
Yeah, okay.
I meant November.
That makes sense.
But thank you, because I could very easily get off base.
Well, just for the record, the cannabis discussion will be on our next council meeting, which is October the 17th.
Okay.
Is that going to be in a work session? Or is that going to be a?
That's to be determined.
Okay. But as far as the issue in regards to the dogs and the issues in regard to the quarry, that'll probably be the first meeting in November, depending on what our workload is, so that it's at night and not during the day when you all could possibly be working. Entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into an open work session. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Means adjourned.
Thank
First
you,
item.
guys.
Yeah, thank you again.
Sorry.
Dr. Casey, have a good evening. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First item on the open work session is the letter of support for the state legislation for tax subtraction on death benefits for fallen law enforcement officers and tax waiver. We brought this on. If you look at the letter that's in the brief book, Corporal Hilliard's family recognized the fact that after she was given the benefits from the county, the death benefits from the county, that all of a sudden she was looking at, their family was faced with a $170,000 tax bill.
That's right, yeah.
So Sheriff Lewis was extremely concerned on how we could possibly alleviate that problem to the best of our abilities. As you see in the letter, it's not all within our control. 138,000 of that is federal, 38,000 is the state of Maryland. And when you add that all together, the county's portion is a minuscule amount of that 38,000. What did we figure out, Mrs. Hurley? It was only a few thousand, actually.
Yeah,
Somewhere between 3,000 and 7,000.
Yeah.
I forget, because it's a percentage. Our piggyback tax, as they call it, is a percentage of that. So we're just sending a letter out, sort of with a broad brush, saying we'd like you to do whatever you can in order to hopefully address this on the state level. It would be great. We're sort of letting the state know that, hey, if you want to forego the 138,000, we recognize you would also be waiving the county's funds. But this is sort of a letter to the state saying we don't mind. We're willing to forego that because we think it's worthwhile effort.
Yeah.
So are we all on the same page with that? Encouraging the state to maybe drop their 138, or excuse me, their 38, as would be some help, and then the county would do the same for whatever portion they have. That's the letter. I don't think we can go any higher. I would like to see members, maybe our Eastern Shore delegation, of course, appealing to the governor and any other state offices, but maybe even, and we could appeal to Andy Harris as well, and our local and our state senators as well as our congressmen to try to get them maybe to. Federal. Yeah, the federal, and to maybe make some effort on their part to waive that. So I don't know how big an uphill battle that might be. But for tonight, we're just looking for the one. Bob?
Mr. President, if it's okay, I guess the point of personal privilege, if I could, you sent me an email that you had gotten from Sheriff Lewis and raising this question. It was asking questions about tax issues, and I'm not a tax expert, so, and it suggested in there that there might be some provision in Maryland law that exempted part of this. So I reached out to Delegate Chris Adams and asked if he could put me in touch with somebody in the state who might be able to give some direction. And I wanted to give him credit, but beyond that, that was on a Thursday, and that night he reached out to the comptroller's office, and he actually spoke to Comptroller Learman. And on Friday, she had her director of her legal division on the phone with me for a half an hour to discuss this. And I just wanted to tell you that that's the kind of reaction that it got. And it's my understanding that the comptroller is supportive of this and I'm not sure how this works exactly, but the plan generally is that there will be a bill submitted into the House, but there will be a sister bill submitted into the Senate simultaneously. And that sister bill will be submitted by Senator Michael Jackson, who is from Prince George's County, a Democrat from Prince George's County, who's also, I think, the former sheriff of Prince George's County. So the expectation, I think, is that this is going to get bipartisan support in Annapolis, and that Comptroller Learman is going to strongly support it. I don't know what that means in eventual terms, but it sounds like it might get supported and passed ultimately. But the point is, I wanted to give Delegate Adams credit for calling Comptroller Learman, but Comptroller Learman put her people in contact with me and got them involved in it immediately. I mean, literally with less than 12 hours, I had a phone call with her director of legal division. The bad news is on Monday, this was Thursday, on Friday I spoke to them. On Monday they called back and said unfortunately they agreed with the opinion that had been issued by PKS that this was taxable and there wasn't anything that could be done about it. But they basically said they would be supportive in putting a bill in to try to get Maryland at least to waive it. On the federal level, my understanding, and I'm not sure about this, but my understanding is that there's been a bill presented, some sort of HEROES Act bill, but it's been stuck in Congress for a number of years. Mm-hmm. So it may be that you might be able to contact the congressman and maybe he can do something, but apparently it's been sitting for a while. So, but in any event, I just wanted to make sure that they got credit because they jumped right on it, and it was a very positive experience.
Well, Mr. Benson, I want to thank you also for following up on that and contacting the sheriff and going so far as to talk to the comptroller's office. But you're right, it says a lot about the comptroller's office too, and Delegate Adams is always very responsive. I've never talked to him ever about an issue where he has not gotten back to me within 24 hours with some type of resolution or at least a great answer on it, on the issues. So, but thanks for that clarification.
Well, a lot of times it's just nice to have somebody you can call that maybe knows what the answers are.
Sure.
And that's what he was able to help with.
We appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that.
You know, we've had the same issue with the death benefits for the fire department volunteers, where they have to pay taxes on the death benefit. You know, it's in fact, you know, it's kind of you're doing something for them, but then the state's taking something back. Or the federal government's taking something back, so I hope we can get something done on this. Like I say, Chris did a good job.
Let me bring up one small point that I was thinking of while Mr. Benson was talking. Mrs. Hurley, do you think there should be something in here where we add that we would like it to be retroactive through 20?
We can.
Excuse me?
We can, yes.
Don't you think we should probably do that? Because this is going to go into legislative session at 24.
I think it's intended to be retroactive, what they're talking about.
I'll just make a statement just to clarify it.
Thank you. Okay, that's okay with everyone?
It could get hung up there and take time to get done. You know?
Okay.
I think it's interesting that if this was an insurance payment from a life insurance policy, it wouldn't be taxable. But because it's a death benefit, it's taxable. Would we be better taking out a life insurance policy on the employees?
One thing I'm not sure, that's a good point. I don't know if we're self-insured on the death benefit. But I'm assuming that couldn't possibly be.
We were doing that for the fire department, and we were paying a large premium. This is back when Rick Pollitt was here, and David, we're there by the airport, I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
David Walston.
Walston, yeah.
Yeah, David Walston called me one day, and he said, you know, this would be so much cheaper if you self-insured this. And that's what we did. And it saved a ton of money, but self-insuring. But what we didn't realize, as a death benefit, then it's taxable. So, anyway.
Yeah, everybody's okay with sending this out, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. The other item we have on the agenda,
Oh, there's something else?
That's it.
nope, that is it. Sorry about that. I'm having trouble with my mouse, and I keep trying to go back and forth, and it won't go back and forth.
You're like, are we really done?
Lost. Entertain motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
All right.